And we are back again like Hakkinen, of course. It's the 20th of the 6th, 2025. The time is 23 minutes past 8. And that means that there are very many F1-centric thread at which we need to pull. It's Formula One Fridays. We go long. This is going to be a back and forth, more of a conversation than it is an F1 diatribe, monologue per se. How are we all doing in the chat? Here's what we're going to talk about. We'll address, there's been a lot of talk about Max Verstappen, where he's going, his future, and the intersecting portion of that Venn diagram as far as George Russell's future. We'll talk about that. Christian Horner has talked about Red Bull, that they never ever died, that they will keep fighting until the very end, Braveheart style, that they're going to keep bringing updates and upgrades with a view to empower Max Verstappen, no, enable Max Verstappen to defend his fourth championship, soon to be 5 times, some say. We'll talk about Ferrari because there's a communication officer, former Scuderia Ferrari communication officer, who per the race podcast has had some things to say. So too, we'll talk about Toto. He said some things about the car. We'll talk about Helmut Marko reacting to the all of a sudden pace of the Mercedes. So too, we'll talk about Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Journalese, some of the things that have surprised him about Sir Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, his age, not me talking, this is Rene Arnoux, legend of the game, him saying that Lewis Hamilton potentially, his age might be a handicap as versus the one that they call Charles Leclerc. It will get techie. We'll talk about Isack Hadjar as well. Legend. I'm coming round to that chap, I'm not going to lie to you. Didn't like him in the first instance, eating it into the barrier on the formation, that very first race of his F1 career. Now, however, I mean, if there's a rookie of the year, surely he has a name at this juncture. 10 races deep into a 24 race season. He has a name, and his name is Isack Hadjar. Put some respect on his name. That chap's given an interview to Tom Klotz and F1 Nation. I want to go through some of the highlights. I was impressed. I listened to it all and I was popcorn. It was brilliant. Endearing, if anything, Isack Hadjar. And again, he's not a bad chap. Talks about everything, his history, his family, the fact that his dad is a professor of physics, that all the engineers say that Isack Hadjar is nothing if not of brilliant intelligence, that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. He talks about qualifying pace. He talks about mental fortitude and working with a sports psychologist all the way from F2 even. He talks about who he thinks is the best, who he thinks is the quickest, and who he thinks is the benchmark currently in 2025. We'll go for that, I promise, through all of it. It's chaos. It's a brilliant bloody... I'm going to have to link it in the description so you guys can go and dissect for it yourself. It's a brilliant interview. And wait to endear yourself, Isack Hadjar, to the F1 populace. Go on then, in the first instance, Max Verstappen future. Some are saying that he won't be going to Aston Martin. Why? Well, because there are doubts about Aston Martin. Have you seen them of late? It's not good. Adrian Newey can only do so much. And even if he does, where the Adrian Newey wheels meet the road, there will still be a lead time, right? You can't just embed Adrian Newey in the team and expect results tomorrow. He only just started work on a 2026 car. How quickly can he do it? Now, people say that he's the last airbender, that people are still looking at his drawings amazed at Aston Martin boys and girls. This is Andy Cowell talking, not me. And again, if you're going to put trust in anybody as far as expertise, it is him. Split turbo hybrid settings 2014, well, Andy Cowell headed that up. But I still think it's not Mission Impossible per se. That's not the right characterization. I misconstrue, but it would be expecting too much for Adrian Newey to jump into that team 12 months later, new rules and regs notwithstanding, build himself a race leading car all of a sudden. If you listen to Adrian Newey, he said a couple of things of late, notwithstanding the fact that he's hired this Giles fellow with whom he used to work, God tier simulator bod. Adrian Newey said that it's not all about the wind tunnel, nor is it all about the 500 million brand new factory that Lawrence Stroll has invested in. It's all about your people, and that they need better people. He said that the wind tunnel over at Red Bull wasn't fantastic, wasn't anything to sing about, but it was their people that managed to get the best out of it. Of course, he's talking about Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director. Of course, he's talking about Fallows, Rob Marshall, those type of market leading F1 minds in one space, all in one room, are always going to have the best bloody conversations, out of which are going to come the best outcomes. Do you know what I mean? Oldest truism in F1 history, but that takes some time to happen, right? In the first instance, you need to recruit the people and then keep them shortly thereafter. Adrian Newey is saying, per his latest interview, AstonMartin.com, that they haven't even done the first step, that they don't have the right people in play just yet. And that's why I think, notwithstanding a reunion with Honda looking very attractive, so too the money, 1 billion, very, very sexy offer from Lawrence Stroll, so too a reunion with Adrian Newey. I'm not sure that Max Verstappen looks at the green team more than he does Mercedes, at least. We'll come back to Mercedes. But this chap, Diego Meyer, per F1 Oversteer, the legends of, has said that potentially there's a couple impediments to him leaving, Max Verstappen leaving the Bulls that are red. Here's what he's talking about. He said Max Verstappen won't be joining Aston Martin despite the arrival of Adrian Newey and the Honda Power Unit next year. But journalist Diego Meyer believes that Red Bull have to nail one component on next year's car to convince Max Verstappen to stay. Have a guess, chat. Let me know what you think that component is. Of course, it's the bloody Power Unit. Red Bull, Ford. Behave yourself. Do you think anybody believes in that? You would be a fool to brand new circumstance. I don't buy it. When has there ever been a team in history, shy of Tyrrell back in the day, that jumped in and nailed anything first time round? 6.6 was perfect, right? But that doesn't exist in F1. Not without length of service and tenure. Behave your bloody self. Here's what this article reads. And again, shout out to F1 Oversteer, legends of the game. Red Bull's 2026 power unit is Max Verstappen's breaking point, pun intended, for staying at the team. This fella argues while he was speaking on the Pit Pass Analysis podcast about Verstappen's future. He says, I think Mercedes would like to benefit from what they've been working on and then sudden opportunity that they have to give Kimi because Lewis was suddenly leaving. I mean, it would be like making yet another change within 3 years. I don't know, mate. Here's what he means to say: that Mercedes have the whip and pole position as far as the ability to develop a market-leading power unit as a function of length of service, tenure. 2014, if past this prologue split turbo hybrid settings, that was where all of their 8 constructors back to back championships came from, right? They had 30 to 40 brake horsepower on the rest. Who's to back against them doing it again, chat? Non-rhetorical question. Not me. And you think Max Verstappen's not critically aware of that there are push and pull factors in this. Push factors as far as Red Bull's ability to compete with Mercedes and Scuderia Ferrari as far as the efficacy and efficiency even of their engines. And the pull factor, of course, being that Mercedes have all of that expertise. They've been saying, right, James Allison came out and said that the feeling around Mercedes power unit for 2026 is not too dissimilar. Is not too dissimilar to what it was in 2014. As you can hear my little man in the background trying to get in on the act, of course, just like his old man. Likes the sound of his own voice and the camera. I've got to be in here in a second, I promise. Oh, and by the way, if we're talking about Ferrari, this chap, former Ferrari communications consultant Roberto Boccafogli, has chimed in on the race podcast, and he said some things about Ferrari that I think are worthy of note. We'll rattle through them. He said, quote, the question is, what's going on? What's going wrong? Fred kept saying that there is potential, that we must be better in extracting the potential in the SF25, the current year's iteration of Scuderia Ferrari car, the red car with the yellow badge, black prancing horse atop. Continues, but Leclerc and then Lewis, they started to say the following. Now they are very heavily that there is more potential, no more potential to extract. The car is nowhere. The car is nothing. Please, let's think about next year. Boccafogli are leading to the fact that Frederick is saying one thing and the drivers in Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are directly contradicting this. Their intonations are now fundamentally diametrically opposed. They're saying different things, chat. And as far as John Elkann, he'll be looking at that going, what's going on here? I thought we were meant to be singing from the same hymn sheet, pushing in the same direction at the very least, even if we don't have the minerals Let's make it seem as if we do, false seeming to get Shakespearean. The problem, continues Boccafogli, is that there is no answer. There is no answer because Fred is not used to explaining things because he feels he doesn't need to explain. So this will lead into the fact that Frederick Vasseur came out and started complaining about the press and media, that the Italian press are now impacting Ferrari in their ability to perform to the downside. What should that have to do with the slice of bread? Frederick Vasseur, worries me, won't cut it here. You are Ferrari, Tifosi's team, Italy's team. I've said on a gazillion occasions, Smedley has told you, if you win, you'll never have to buy a drink nor a meal in Italy. If you lose, they will spit at you in the streets. That's what's at stake here. This is religion, settings. Frederick Vasseur, nobody wants to hear you moaning and woe is meeting at the altar of media and bad press. Behave yourself. This is Scuderia Ferrari. Frederick Vasseur, if the heat is too much, then get out of the kitchen. And I think sadly for Frederick Vasseur, that's the way that this is going. Once the expectation, pressure, doom loop starts to get some momentum as far as Scuderia Ferrari, Maranello and Fiorano, I think it takes some cutting. I think it takes some stopping. Chat. Here's what I think Frederick Vasseur is: Sisyphus. He's pushing this boulder up the hill now, and I think it's an exercise in futility. I don't want to jump the gun and be premature, chat, but I think he's going to struggle here. Exercise in futility almost feels and looks and smells like the drivers, although they will say everything to the contrary in explicit terms, it looks and feels like Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean, and Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton have almost given up, not just on this year as an endeavour, the drivers and the constructors championship, but Frederick Vasseur and the outfit and its ability to deliver a car capable of winning drivers and constructors championship. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. This Boccafogli fella continues, by the way, goes hard, and he would know, right? He used to work for them in a very senior position, head of communications, or communications consultant even. Roberto Boccafogli continues, the problem is that there is no answer. There is no answer because Fred is not used to explaining things. In the last month, there was something so controversial between his words and the driver's words, and the situation got very, very stiff. Now it is very, very stiff. Then he got very nervous because he got to the point on Friday in Canada to say, with the kind of press Ferrari, with this kind of press, Ferrari will never win, and this makes everybody crazy. What's it got to do? What should the press look? The best managers and team principals that I've ever seen in F1 history had this uncanny ability, as your boys knows he's running, an uncanny ability to circle the wagons around their personnel. Jean Todt did it brilliantly. An us and them mentality, a siege mentality. Sir Alex Ferguson, if you go back to bloody Bill Belichick, across sports, this isn't something peculiar to Formula One. They would leverage hate from the media, bad press, to glue their team together, to catapult their team onto the upper echelons of sporting endeavour. I'm not sure then that Frederick Vasseur has the pioneering leadership and is motivational sufficient to do this then, if he's in front of the media and press complaining. I wouldn't see that necessarily from an Alex Ferguson or I don't know, or the Chicago Bulls is Phil. You must be joking. Not that way. Moaning, worries me. On the attack, of course, but I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm seeing from Frederick Vasseur is what needs to be done, is requisite to getting Scuderia Ferrari over the hill. I don't know. Hadjar, we'll talk about Hadjar, Andrew. That dude puts a smile on my face. I'm telling you, there will be Isack Hadjar glaze incoming, I promise you. Safak is going to get techie. I'm aware you got to be careful about showing your children. So I do it easy, G. I'm not precious, mate. There's already, if you remember Easy G, and you are remember Easy G, go onto the community tab and you can see my little man professing his dying love for one Maximilian Verstappen as his favourite driver. I'd do it easy, G. I'm not precious, mate. You're a legend, Jomo. Go on then. So let's talk about Mercedes very quickly. There's been a lot of chat over the past 24 hours about what happened. Where has this pace come from? For the longest time, it has been the moniker Toto, the boy who cried wolf, and he's been living up to it. He said he was going to provide Lewis with a car using which he could win himself an unprecedented 8th World Championship. Where has that been? Nowhere. Didn't happen. It was fugazi. False promises from false prophets. Hence why I still call that dude Toto, the boy who cried wolf. It is joke. I say it tongue in cheek, but there are very serious undertones. He's been saying he was going to do this and that, provide X, Y, and Z, and we've seen nothing, if not the opposite, for the past 4 years, as near as makes no difference, ever since Abu Dhabi 2021 and the polemic that was. However, it seems like Mercedes have rounded third base. The context is this. That car, that Silver Arrows vehicle, hitherto has been a bit of a diva. They built a car in 2022 that sans side pods, thinking that they were going to make it super slippery, that it was going to be a genius innovation, and it was rubbish. In a sans barge pod era, you need the side pods to redirect the dirty air off the wheels outboard, lest you be doomed to mix the clean flow of air with dirty, and so completely disrupt the bloody airflow in a flipping ground effect era. Are they stupid? Are they daft? And then, of course, it was porpoising et al. It's been chaos between now and then, 2022 up until 2024. They just didn't have the materials. The car was a diva. When it was cold, a la Las Vegas, all of a sudden the car comes alive. You know what I mean? A proper diva. One of 365 days a year, they could get a tune out from that car. At altitude, cooler climbs. It needed everything, all of its ducks to be in a row. Wolves would be howling. Do you know what I mean? Once a month. It was a joke. Now, however, it feels like something's happened. George Russell said about their performance at the Canadian Grand Prix, it's no guarantee that they will sort it out, be able to replicate for it at Austria, at the altar of 3 different things. In the first instance, the car was suited by the Canadian Grand Prix track. No high to medium speed turns, medium duration, no challenging turns, no Degners, no Eau Rouges, no Maggots and Beckett's around Canada. Turn 2 and 3, yeah, maybe, but the rest are just high speed to low speed chicanes, aren't they? Hairpin-esque, a la, I don't know, Rascasse as an example. Chicane 1 and chicane 2 at the Italian Grand Prix as an example. Super high speed down the straight, jump on the brake pedal 100%, and then try your best to hook it up around the chicane. That's all that. If you can nail that at Canada, then you can nail the lap. And of course, Mercedes, as far as the handling dynamic of its latest iteration of vehicle, the W16, likes that. Let's see how they go at Austria. And that's what George Russell said at the altar of a couple different, 3 in particular. You've got to gauge, temper your expectations of Mercedes going forward. Yeah, of course, they bought themselves a modified, updated rear suspension, and that helped with the tyre deg. Of course it did. But then going forward, George Russell says what you want to be careful is of the track circumstance. So the track absolutely bloody helped on 2 fronts. The fact that it didn't have any medium to high speed turns in there, really. That's Canada. That's always been Canada. And in the second instance, no contours. Take a Singapore or a Spa over a Spa-Francorchamps, where elevation is always going to be problematic. A challenge for which these drivers and cars will need to solve. And then tyre deg is the last thing. It was fairly cool. Tyre deg wasn't necessarily an issue. Where tyre deg is an issue and it's going to be warmer, Mercedes will struggle again, as they always have. This Mercedes car, the W16, is no MCL39 yet. But count Mercedes out at your peril, chat. You know what I mean? Toto, the boy who cried wolf, feels like he's much in the ascendancy, especially now that King George Russell of Kingsley, Norfolk, and so too Andrea Kimi Antonelli, are playing their way into the crease. They spoke about Mercedes, didn't they? Somebody recently, sans Sir Lewis, saying that they're much more laid back. It's a less pressurised circumstance where they can just focus on getting ish done. Interesting that. Helmut Marko chimed in on the aforementioned, saying that Mercedes' lack of tyre wear in the Canadian Grand Prix was a huge surprise, rear suspension upgrade. Remember Helmut Marko. He says, quote, I think Max pushed too hard in the first stint at Canada to keep up with King George Russell of Kings Lynn Norfolk. But the biggest surprise was from Mercedes was that they were really fast in the race and didn't have the tyre wear problems that we expected. Oh, the humanity. Variable change that. You seeing this? He's techier than techie things, as your boy's nose starts to itch. I must be telling porkies, eh? Your boy's nose starts to itch always at the wrong bloody time. Go on, let me have a look at what you guys are saying. Jomo says, yeah, it's a YouTube. No, yeah, you're a legend, Jomo, as always. Safak, 1,000 miles between WA and the rest of Australia. Turtle, you're a legend, mate. I don't know why you're up so late, Turtle. I appreciate it each and every single time at 3 a.m. God tier levels of commitment each and every. But I think it would be the best. It means you will win if the car is competitive. Please put your DNA in the light. Yeah, let's go, Turtle. You're a legend. Go on then. Let's talk about Charles. Charles chimed in on Sir Lewis. They're talking over at Ferrari. Maybe a bit too much. Have you seen the is it the F80 or the SF? Can't remember. Charles and Lewis doing laps in the latest and greatest Ferrari Supercar, which looks ugly as fudge, by the way. I hate that car. Ferrari have never built an uglier marquee vehicle. Nobody can tell me about the Enzo. Nobody can tell me anything about La Ferrari. But this one, what is it? The F80. Oh, I hate it. Turtle, we'll have to do it at some point, I promise you, mate. I need to start doing more we're building a community here, and I'm conscious that there will be live shows at some point, and there will be member only videos. I promise you. Need to fix up. Go on then, let me tell you about what Charles said. Charles said he was surprised about a couple things about Sir Lewis. Not the fact that he's a brilliant driver, but one thing in particular. I will read out the quote. Modern day journalist Alazy says as follows. Quote, all things were expected, but I was still surprised at the way Sir Lewis brakes. For example, how late he brakes is very, very impressive. In my career, I've always been one of those late breakers. Late braking or braking later even than my teammates, and that is a particular driving style I haven't seen in any of my teammates, but Lewis is a step ahead in that direction, so that surprised me, says Charles. But then for the rest, what surprised me the most, and it is one of those things that I did not expect, is his discipline. It is very impressive, says Charles Leclerc. Interesting. Last of the late breakers. So how do you drive these? I'm asking a non-rhetorical question here. How are you meant to drive these cars, these ground effect cars? Is it the last of the late breakers that wins overall? Or is it the early breakers with a view to manage the handling dynamic and the downforce, the ground effect downforce, the Venturi tunnels, etc., to manage it through the combined entry and exit of the turn? Is that what you need to do? Or is the last of the late breaker thesis still a thing? I think that's where Lewis might be struggling, you know. Last of the late breakers is so 2007. It's not 2025 anymore. And I think that's why Lewis might be struggling. Not the entire story, but some of it. Carrying too much speed into the combined entry and sacrificing then a clean exit, getting on the throttle earlier than Charles Leclerc is not, or at least has not been Sir Lewis's lot over the past 24 months. And to that point, legend of Formula One, René Arnoux, has come out and he's had some things to say about Sir Lewis Hamilton, questioning his ability to beat a quicker, in inverted commas, Charles Leclerc. Here's what he says. He says Leclerc always drives around the problems of the car. He spits blood to go fast. I liked him a lot at Monte Carlo, who tried very hard to induce Norris to make a mistake, but Lando was very good. Hamilton, though, continues René Arnoux, he tries hard, but he has that handicap of age. At 40, it's not easy to put up with look at this. It's not easy to put up with the athletic effort that these cars require. René Arnoux' word, not mine. To keep up, he should have a car that is significantly faster than the others, and that's not the case. Oh, the humanity, René. How very day. Are you saying that Lewis Hamilton is washed at the age of 40 years old? That there's been a gazillion F1 champions at 40 years old? That Father Time is not undefeated, undisputed? This techie, this. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we've had a conversation about this on a gazillion occasions. Father Time is undefeated, undisputed. Whether Lewis Hamilton can be the first, Mr. Unprecedented, you wouldn't back against him necessarily. But on the most recent form and evidence, it's techier than techie things, eh? Honestly, James, difficult to predict at this stage within a race as to whether being sprint mode or marathon mode. Kubica, boldly said all this. But you know, I heard something about Kubica. Let's talk about Robert very quickly. We'll go through it tomorrow because they talk about it more eloquently than I ever could on the Chris Harris on Cars podcast. One of them said of Kubica that there's a game, Manish Pandey, bless him. We'll go through it tomorrow because I think Robert needs a bit more. He's deserving of a bit more light. The redemption arc is incredible, and somebody needs to make a biopic on this. It's levels. The fact that he had the accident and still comes back and wins Le Mans, was never the same, was never going to be an F1 driver. But that notwithstanding, still comes back and wins Le Mans in a Ferrari, a yellow Ferrari. Bloody not! Come on, let's be serious. But Manish Pandey said a couple of different things about Robert Kubica that I didn't realise. Said that his processing, as far as his CPU, his internal CPU and race IQ, was on a completely different level. Said that there's a game that F1 drivers play, where you all will have played it by now. You know when you're on a computer and the word flashes up and it will say red or blue or green, and it will be the font color will be, I don't know, say if it says red, the font color will be red, or the word says red, but the font color will be blue. And you've got to press a one that says matching or not matching, depending on whether the font color matches the word. So if it says red and the font color is red, matching. If the word is red, but the font color is blue, doesn't match. So that Kubica, when he was playing that game, was unmatched, ironically, that nobody could get near him. Again, testament to his processing power. Chaotic. Put some respect on that name. If BMW had invested in that season rather than divesting out of it and thinking about future, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, lest we forget, then we might be talking about a one-time champion, at least. I mean, if Damon could do it, then surely Robert was good enough too as well. Go on, and let's talk about this Isack Hadjar thing. I honestly, chat, I couldn't be more impressed at this dude. And this is coming from a guy that believed F1 aficionados saying that Isack Hadjar potentially didn't have the minerals to become an F1 driver. Not a good one, not a championship winning one. At the altar of being too temperamental, too mercurial. Every time he'd lose, you'd hear him in the car effing and blinding. FP1 sessions weren't fantastic. They said that he didn't have the speed. He wasn't built to be a Formula 1 driver. And then you see what happened in F2 last season. It's like, well, okay, so that wasn't his fault necessarily. But if you're going to put all of your betting eggs as a degenerate in one of the Bartoletto or Isack Hadjar baskets, then Bartoletto every single time, right? He's the champ. He knows how to win. In fact, au contraire, mon ami, you could argue that he doesn't know how to lose. Isack Hadjar will have to unlearn that. And then you see Australia. Oh, the humanity proved right again, Cameron. Do you know what I mean? Nobody bats 1,000. But as far as Hadjar, I was close. Didn't look like he had it in him. This was reminiscent of Lance Stroll in Brazil. Yeeting it into the barrier. Yeah, of course it was wet, but yeeting it into the barrier on your formation, that very first race in F1. This bodes well, done it? No. Another Nick De Vries, surely. Another Nicholas Latifi, go Tifi, potentially, as versus another Michael Schumacher or Lewis or Senna or Max, surely. Well, that's what it looked like, first-hand evidence settings. I'm starting to like this dude. To a man, Hulkenberg, who else was on the press conference? It was Hulkenberg, it was Liam Lawson, and it was somebody else, maybe Max. And to a man, they each said that if there were a Rookie of the Year season today after round 10, he has a name, and his name is Isack Hadjar. Put some respect on it. And of course, I think they're barking at the right tree here. He's been incredible. You're talking about, you know that 2 races ago, before Canada, The previous 2 races, cumulative points total in the standing over those 2 races, Isack Hadjar had scored more points than both Red Bull Racing drivers, both Tsunoda-san and Max Verstappen. That is, in your first season, chaos, chat. Genuine, absolute chaos. So I don't know what's going on, James. I think we need to start putting some respect on his. And then when you hear him talk, and again, people have a habit, F1 fans and sports fans more broadly, have a habit of investing too much in the words that somebody says, because there is a disconnect, right? Just because you can speak like Shakespeare in iambic pentameter, sonnet settings, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to greatness in the sports arena. Au contraire, mon ami, sometimes the gap, sometimes linguistic performance travels inversely to sports performance in the arena. You could be the best talker, but then you're writing checks that your ass cannot cash. Mention no names, Lando Norris. You know what I mean? That's where we might be going with this. But Isack Hadjar presents really well in a way that's super endearing, chat. I'm not going to lie to you. I was impressed at every single juncture. There's a couple of things that he talked about in the first instant. He says that he wasn't meant to get into F1. He says that nobody ever announced to him that he was an F1 driver officially. Nobody said, welcome to the gang, Isack. He said at every single juncture, helmet marker. This is context. This is on the F1 Nation podcast, the most recent one. I will link the episode in the description if you so choose to watch it. Excuse me, keep wiping my nose. I don't know what's going on. Hay fever settings, of course. Isack Hadjar says it's brilliant. I can't remember being so captivated. I wanted to download. I've still got a couple of clips that we can listen to. I just wanted to go through all. He's incredible, chat. This dude is got, like, I don't know. I'm amazed by him. Oh, ye of little faith, Cameron. I thought this dude was going to crash and burn. Like, I just didn't think he'd go anywhere. Oh, ye of little faith, Cameron. This dude is all right. Go on, let me tell you about what he talks about in the interview. First, he says that his road into F1 was improbable. He wasn't supposed to get into F1. But he says, like his dad, who's a lecturer at some bloody top-tier university in physics, no less, like his dad, he's done well from very little. He's made it to the upper echelons of his particular sporting endeavour. And that's brought me in. He's an underdog, chat. You know what I mean? He hasn't come to it like Lando or... Do you know what I mean? This dude, he's come from nothing. And I love that already. And then he speaks so openly about it. His levels... He's not crowding nor circling the wagons. He's just an open book. And I'm like, I'm here for it, chat. I'm here for it. I'm going to get my Isack Hadjar apparel and my cap. Because I'm rating him. I am rating. Homework, psychoanalyze your boss. Most likely this is somebody emotionally closed. I don't hate it. I don't hate it, James. We could talk about that. It's difficult to say who's the best rookie right now. Don't disagree with yourself because Kimi has the best car. You got to normalise for that for sure. That's a fair comment, Michael. But in my point, I think that Toto, go on, we'll talk about Toto again in a minute. Let me get through Isack first. So Isack gives the background and he starts talking about his mental fortitude. Tom Clarkson asked the question, when did you start investing in like a sports psychologist? Because again, the juxtaposition is this, right? Lando will never talk about that stuff, not openly. You think Isack Hadjar just leans straight into it. He says very specifically, previously I didn't see any upside to it. I thought it was gubbins, nonsense. Why would I need to invest so materially in my mental health and mental well-being and my ability to focus in the most pressurized of moments? Isack said he thought it was just rubbish, but then Red Bull forced him to start working with one when he was racing with Campos in F2. Forced his hand, said, you know what, you're going to work with one. And then he realised in testing for Campos during Abu Dhabi, he realised that he didn't have an inkling of where his mental state at the critical times. Looking back, he was asked, what was your mental state doing qualifying? Didn't know. Said he wasn't even paying attention to it. It was out of scope. Something that had a non-zero value, but he couldn't tell you whether it was 10 or 1. That's chaos, chat. He says, all right, then, so I need to start dialing into this because I understand that there is value in it, particularly in qualifying when you need to zone in. Do you know what I mean? He says, Tom Clarkson says, have you been speaking to Jackie Stewart? Because Jackie Stewart's a big fan of this flow state, achieving zero mental noise before you jump into the car and extract the best out of yourself. He says, no, it's not Jackie. Not Jackie. But again, they're very similar. I'm loving this dude in the cut of his jib. I just want him to do well. I've never been won over, so I did not like him previously. I thought he was a moaner. Now all of a sudden I'm rooting for him and buying his apparel. What are we doing here? This is chaos. Absolute chaos. He speaks about Helmut Marko always turning the screw on him. Pressurized circumstances, engineering them even. But he says he's thankful for that, because that makes sure that by the time he got to F1, he was battle hardened, ready for war, that this was nothing to new. The circumstances he was not a stranger to. And that's kind of what you want, isn't it? Some people won't make their first jump. Some people aren't sufficiently hardened or calloused to make it in F1. But Isack Hadjar came ready to go, and it comes across in the bloody interview. He's asked, and this is where you're going to get out your max-plaining hands. He's asked to walk us through a lap at Suzuka. And he talks about going through turn 1, turn 2, that they're flat, practically as near as makes no difference, flat. That if you come off the brake, you don't need to brake at Degner as an example, but if you come off the gas a little bit, that's plenty enough brake. He talks about hitting the apex at Degner 1, that there's a little bump and that you've got to oversteer, you've got to aim not just for the apex, because the bump will wash you away from the apex understeer settings. You've got to overcook your steering angle to compensate for the rate at which the road in front of you contours away. I'm like, oh my God. Inject it into my veins, chat. This level of detail and colour, textured F1 narrative, I can't buy it. You can't bottle and say it's genius. Like, I don't know. I can't remember hearing from an F1 driver that sort of nuanced feedback, being so open and honest in his narrative. I just found it really refreshing. Jack, you've got it. I will link it in the description. You must go and watch this. And then he starts talking about his heroes. He's asked in the first instance, I'm going to play this to you on my phone. Very unprofessional of your boy Cameron, but this is quite important. He's asked in the first instance, Senna was the guy on Saturday, right? Who was the guy on Sunday? Who was your guy? And this is what he says, chat. It's important that you listen to this. I'm going to play it and we'll react to it.
I think the best driver of all time is Lewis Hamilton. Best Formula One driver, the whole package, but the fastest is definitely Ayrton. Whether it's rain or dry or mixed conditions, it's Ayrton Senna.
Have you spent a lot of time looking at videos of him?
Yeah, I think kids my age, that's the only thing we had, really, documentaries, films, and clips on YouTube. And just with that, just with this small amount, he was my idol growing up. So,
did you see the Senna documentary when it?
Go on then. He says that Ayrton Senna was the quickest driver in F1 history, but Lewis Hamilton is the best driver ever. That's interesting, eh? That this dude is so young, but mature enough to make the distinction between best F1 driver, who he says is Lewis, and quickest F1 driver in absolute performance terms over the course of a hot lap at Monaco in '88, as an example. I think shows a level of maturity that I didn't realise that dude had. I think that matters, you know. I really think that matters as far as for his performance going forward. Can you imagine Lando Norris being sophisticated and mature enough to have that conversation? Non-rhetorical question, chat. Maybe Lando does have that in him, but I think this dude at a younger age in his rookie season is manifesting a maturity befitting of a champion in the future, much more than Lando Norris at an equivalent age. Let me play this for you because this is important. Here we go. Asked who the benchmark is in F1 currently. Who's the benchmark? Who's the guy against which you measure yourself? This is Tom Clarkson question, and this is Isack Hadjar's response. Continue. Matt, go on, let me play it again because this is important.
Do you think Max is the benchmark at the moment?
I think
Do you think Max is the benchmark today at the moment from those on the F1 grid currently as at the 20th of the 6th 2025? Isack Hadjar's response is this: yes. At the moment, I don't think it's even close. Prosecution rests no further questions. I don't disagree. How can one disagree? Max Glazing incoming. But it wasn't me that said it. It was Isack Hadjar that said it. I'm just agreeing because I concur. Sir, how can you disagree with the dude on the evidence of the most recent, even this year, normalising for car performance? Who else on that grid is going to put that RB21 where Max Verstappen has put it? Non-rhetorical question. I'll wait. Nobody. That's who. For the avoidance of that. That's just the truth. He's the benchmark, SD-Dub. I just think he is the benchmark. And now that so many people are saying it, Chris Harrison cars, Dave said it, bloody Isack Hadjar's now said it. Rosberg was trackside saying he's god tier in his ability to manipulate the car, the rear, sliding around him, on and around the limits of adhesion and traction. Like, I just don't, who else is going to say it? Do you know what I mean? South Accurate Legend, 274 views and anything. I know the light ratio is cast. What are we doing here? Smash the like. South Accurate, far too kind as always. I appreciate you and appreciate the heads up in the Discord. By the way, if you're not an elite peddler already, what are you doing with your life? Click the join button. Yeah, of course, Cameron. Freudian slip settings. Click the join button. Bottom left of your screen, get yourself access to the Discord using which we continue the conversation. Priority in the comments, priority in the chat each and every single time. South Accurate Legend, moderator extraordinaire, as is Jomo and the rest of you guys. Go on then. Isack Hadjar's telling you about Max. Who else needs to tell you about Max Verstappen? I know the Maximilian Verstappen naysayers will do one of these and avert their gaze, ceasing to disbelieve the evidence that their eyes and ears are putting forth. That's up to them. You know what I mean? But now there is consensus as far as Max Verstappen on recent form. Who's better than that dude? Forget what I said. I'm a B-spec F1 mind. I've only been watching the sport 500,000 years. All my life as near as makes no difference. Do you know what I mean? So like, what are we going to do? Like, how? Max isn't a bad peddler. You don't need to love him as a person. That's up to you. If you don't like his person, but don't allow that subjectivity to drip through to the objective truth. What we will never ever do on this channel is sacrifice either one of those truisms at the altar of partisanship, nor any cognitive bias worthy of the moniker. Not now, not ever. Not a bad driver. Now that Rosberg's telling you, now that Isack Hadjar, Button, all of them to a man are saying that Maximilian Verstappen is a generational talent. How can you dispute it? How can you? You know what I mean? Pimp card revoked immediately if that's the argument that you're putting forth as your principal supposition. Isack Hadjar talks about a couple of different things that I want to touch on as well. F2. He was asked about the difference between F2 and F1 cars. He says in F2 cars, you've got to hustle them along more. They're more difficult to drive. The downforce in F1 cars are more accessible. He was asked about Australia. What happened? He said it's just one of those things. There was nothing that I could do. Snap oversteer moment, white lines, wet conditions. Tom Clarkson asked the follow-up question. Do you feel, is it a consolation? Is it of consolation even the fact that Alonso found himself in the barrier 2 and he's a two-time champion who's been in F1 100,000 years as many as makes no difference? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, I'll confess. It still doesn't help. It doesn't solve. It doesn't anesthetize the pain, but it helps to know that Alonso, as brilliant as that dude is as an F1 driver, has been, then if he couldn't handle it, then do you know what I mean? So you're a legend. Max is god tier. I mean, is it even an argument? Is it even an argument, Herzo, at this point? Is it really an argument? Who are we having that argument with? The Max isn't god tier. Here's what's happened, chap. Let me tell you what's happened. This is interesting as we round third base. It's important to reflect back on the shape of the zeitgeist. Let me tell you what I mean. 2021. There are people who will submit themselves to truth at different rates, right? There are people who see truth. I'm not disparaging anybody, but this is just true in life. Forget F1 and modes of discourse. There are people who will be quicker to the truth, who will almost lean into it. Do you know what I mean? I want to find this. Half the reason why we have this channel and why we go back and forth is I'm testing some of my opinion. I will not bat 1,000. Sometimes I wouldn't even pass the Mendoza line. That's just the truth. Some of my hot takes are Isack Hadjar, for Pete's sake. I thought he'd never amount to anything. I didn't think he'd be an F1 driver. Oh, look at me now. Oh, ye of little faith, Cameron. Oh, the humanity. What are you talking about? Half the reason why I come on this channel and we have these back and forth is because I'm inherently secure and I want you to fact check me, to hold my F1 feet to the fire. I will put forth my suppositions and sometimes you guys will shoot them down, as you well might, because some of them will be dog doo-doo. Do you know what I mean? But I'm going to lean into that. Just like in 2021 when Max Verstappen was coming, I didn't think, much like Isack Hadjar is making me reappraise for the way in which I view him and watch F1. In 2020, I've told you guys this story a gazillion occasions, but I'll retell it since we're touching. Joe, mate, close your ears, chat. In 2021, I didn't think I'd ever see any driver in F1 history do two things. The first was chase Lewis Hamilton down at Silverstone. Okay, so in 2025, it feels like that's becoming commonplace. George did it last year in quali. But before then, 2021, prime Lewis Hamilton. Nobody's going to tell me that Lewis was over there then. No one. He was a beast. And in equal-ish machinery, give or take, Max Verstappen drove away from him at the sprint for the British Grand Prix. What? Hang on. Drive away from Sir Lewis Hamilton at Silverstone? No, impossible. I just didn't believe it. I didn't think I would ever see it. Knowing who Lewis is and was, never. No one could do that. And then Max Verstappen did it. But nobody makes their first jump. So this chap's come along. I don't care what he's... There is a fella that's come along and he's forcing me to recalibrate my expectations. He's a black swan event per Nicholas Nazim Taleb. You know what I mean? The book of the same name. I didn't know. I'm stuttering. I didn't know how to consider it. And the second thing, I thought, well, let's chalk that up to the game. Maybe something happened in that sprint. Maybe Lewis had his Weetabix that day. And then in 2021 at Kota, towards the dying embers of the race, latter stages, final stint, Max Verstappen, older tyres, and Lewis is on fresh rubber now. Closing stages of the race, you're telling me that Max Verstappen isn't going to get beat by Lewis Hamilton? Never. I've never seen a Lewis Hamilton, a bod, hold off Lewis Hamilton on fresher tyre for a race victory, mind, because context is key. In the dying embers of a race, behave yourself. You'll never see it, never will. And then Max Verstappen did it. So I've had to recalibrate, Nando. I've had to recalibrate. I had to recalibrate then, and I wanted to be one of the first to put my thesis to the truth and the light. And Max Verstappen did one of these to it. What are you talking about, Cameron? You know nothing. Nando, I'm telling you the truth. Eh? Is it glaze or is it truth? I just didn't know. I had to reappraise for the way in which I ingested my F1. Nobody was supposed to do them things to Lewis. No one. Never. And then you realise, I didn't know 2018 Singapore, this god tier lap that Lewis Hamilton put in, one of the best laps in F1 history. I didn't know the wrinkles of the narrative were this, that Max Verstappen was on for a quicker lap in slower machinery, but in Sector 3 his bloody engine failed it, or something happened to it. I didn't know this. You didn't know? Nobody wants to talk about this. Max has been doing this for a while now. This isn't new, chat. Suzuka quali is not a brand new thing for Max. And it's one of those, right? If you're a flash in the back, Montoya, even a broken clock gets it right twice a day. I feel like that's where Lando is now. And if it were just a one-off, then whatever. But James Allen put it more succinctly and better, more comprehensively than I ever could. There is a feeling almost of inevitability. Even when Max didn't put it on pole for the Canadian Grand Prix, you'll forgive me for thinking that he nailed it. I thought it was in the bag. We've been here before. We've read this book recently in 2025. It just feels inevitable. I don't know. That's what happens when you get your 10,000 or 100,000 hours at this stage. probably per Max. He's just he's not bad. And it's sadder to me that Max and Lewis fans just will not get along, because I think the drivers, although they're very different people outside the cockpit, I swear, if you made both of their helmets white and compared and contrasted Lewis in 07 and 08, to Max in like 21, 22, I'd swear, I don't think you'd be able to tell the difference. They are twin drivers as far as the way that they attack. I swear to you, I don't know. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame that F1 fans can't learn to that broadly. It's almost like it's mutually exclusive to be a fan of Max and then Lewis. Like, those things can't exist in the same space, and I think that's really sad. Because F1 fans who appreciate God tier F1 driving cannot not appreciate Max and Lewis, because like Max is doing what Lewis was there. I just don't get it. It's nonsense. But anyway, it is whatever it is, because sometimes the footballification of F1 is a serious thing, and there's nothing you can do in the face of them. Their footballification title, where there is an unspoken rule that a field improves itself over and over until it stagnates. Then somebody enters in and sets the bar. That's probably James, you've said it, eh? Easy Max was insanely unlucky in 21. Should have clinched it with it. Yeah, they're both driving credit. The truth is, they both were incredible. That season is. Yeah, Abu Dhabi polemic or whatever. Oh, but both. It depends on the lens through which you ingest your F1, right? They both were incredible. Silverstone, Cota, Brazil, Mexico. I mean, flipping Nora, like, mate, one of the best seasons that you'll ever see. Guys, I'm going to go and run. You guys have been legends. I will see you same time, same place tomorrow. As always, between now and next time, thank you so much. Again, let me say, I don't want to labour the point, but I make no apology for doing it. This channel functions by dint of your guys coming in and fact-checking me, holding my very noddy F1 feet to the fire. Do you know what I mean? Subverting my wonky truth sometimes and telling me that I'm a numpty. My name is above the door, but it doesn't. It exists for you, because of you. We're looking to build a channel, the biggest and brightest F1 fan channel and community in the world. Between now and next time, thank you guys. I'm grateful ad infinitum. Prosecution rest. No further questions, Your Honour.